Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beauty Beyond the Ashes podcast, where we talk all things forgiveness, restoration, freedom, healing, and wholeness so that we can walk in God's purpose and calling for our lives with courage and boldness. I am your host, Tanya B. Jones. I want to welcome you here. If you are here for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you. And I pray that something is said or done that will bring you back and that will continue to bless you. If you are an OG, you've been hanging with me, you've been listening and kind of with me for some time, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for returning. And as always, I will ask that you would rate, review, subscribe, whatever it is on whatever platform that you are on. I would ask that you do that. If you are an Apple user, please give me a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. If you are watching on YouTube, I ask that you would subscribe to the channel. And regardless of where you hear me, I ask that you would share so that if this blesses you, that it will bless someone else too. That's how we grow. We grow through other people watching, rating, reviewing the podcast. And I'm hoping that today's episode will be a blessing to you. I won't be long, but I'm going to go ahead and get into it. So I'm a CeCe Winans fan, and but I had never really known anything about her story. So one day she was doing a what was it? A talk. She was doing a talk, and she mentioned something about Whitney Houston. She and Whitney Houston were good friends. And she said that Whitney had asked her to be on one of her songs, which was the song I'm Every Woman. And I don't know if you've ever really listened to the words of that song, but CeCe was saying, you know, I love you, Whitney, but I can't roll with you on that one. We're not going to rock together on this, because in the song, it says, I will cast a spell. She said when she heard that, I was like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not, I'm not doing that. So there were a few other things. And in listening to her on the interview, I said, I'd like to know a little bit more about her. So if you don't know, she has a book out, and I believe the book is called Believe Bigger or Believe For It. I think that's the name of it. Well, I got it. Yes, Believe For It. That's the name of her book. So I went and I downloaded the book on Audible, and I began to listen to her story. And she says this even in her book. She says, I know my story sounds unreal. I know that my story just sounds like, a life of bliss and that I did it all right and everything. Because when you're listening to her, story of her life, it's like, you are an anomaly. Where did you come from? Because I don't know anyone who lived this type of life. I mean, there are people out there. I know Tony Evans' kids, kind of live this way. Priscilla Shire, who I love. If anybody knows Priscilla Shire, I have her on all of my, even on this one back here, all my vision boards for the past 4 or 5 years. I have had her on there because I am just in awe of who she is as a woman of God. And you can't really see on there, but I declare that I will do a project with her, that I will somehow, someday, some way work with her. It's in my spirit. Okay. I'm off subject. I'm back. But listen, so CeCe Winans describes her life, and it is just so, like, she talks about when she was a child, how she would go with her grandmother to 6 a.m. prayer meeting before she went to school. Not that anyone made her, not that anyone, this was like something that had to be done. This was a desire of her to go with the older women. She was a child, the older women of the church, and go to Bible study at 6 a.m. in the morning. That wasn't my story. Ain't my story. And so she talked about just how she had this drawing from a very early age, and how in this book she talks about how we are to take the younger generation and raise them up in God. And that's the whole premise for her, this book. Um, and it's incredible because it's like, believe for it. Believe that that will happen, right? And I guess in listening to the book, it's hard to believe for that. Like it sounded perfect to me. Of course, no one has the perfect life. But, she's had her struggles, and as we all will, we are not exempt from the struggles of life as and as Christians and believers and followers, disciples of Jesus. We're not exempt. But as she talked, I'm like, how you raise a child like this? How are you like groomed in this way? So that brought me back to a time. It was in my early 40s. I'm headed to mid 50s right now. I'll be 54 this year. But this was in like my very early 40s, like 42, 43. And I was living in San Antonio, and I had become a member of an amazing church and women's ministry. I was being mentored and mentoring. It was just a wonderful place in my life at that time. I was just longing to know God and to just have this relationship with Him, right? And got to a point where I was like, God, why couldn't I feel this back in my 20s? Why couldn't I have lived this way and long to be with you and live the way you wanted me to? And why couldn't I have done your will back then? And I got to a place where I was feeling, I was convicting, I was condemning myself for not having lived the life that God wanted me to over the last 20 years. And I was very saddened by that. And I would look at the women in the group that I was with, and I was like, oh my God, and they were young, and they had been living these lives for God and had been chasing after Him and had been working for Him. And even when they were single, they might have been married with children, even when they were single. And then I began to long, God, why, when I was in my singleness, because I didn't get married until I was 37, why in my singleness couldn't I do for you? Why couldn't I live a life for you like that? Why was I chasing after the worldly things instead of chasing after you? And even back then, God pressed upon my heart that you've got you've got a lot of life to give me. Start now. You've got you're here now, right? So when I was listening to CC Winans, that feeling came back again of why? Why? And God brought to me the fact that I am a redeemer and I am a restorer. I have redeemed you. I have you back. I paid the price. Jesus paid the price for you. Time is nothing to me. I don't care if you were 70 when you did this. I have a plan for you, and it's a good plan for you. Don't you worry about the time that has passed. What I need you to do is start right now. And I wanted to come on here because some of us, especially those of us who have been living under our own condemnation, living in God's forgiveness, but under our own condemnation. Those of us who have done that for years, for decades, it's time for you to understand that if you if you have given your life to God, you have been redeemed. If you have professed Christ, his blood redeemed you. You are back. You are back. And as I was studying, two things came to mind, two scriptures. And the one that held most for me was Ephesians 5:15-17. And I want to read it to you in the Amplified Certified AMPC version. And it says, look carefully then how you walk. Live purposefully and worthily and accurately, not as the unwise and witless, but as wise, sensible, intelligent people, making the very most of the time, buying up each opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be vague or thoughtless and foolish, but understanding and firmly grasping what the will of God, of the Lord is. My sister, my brother, I'm telling you, this verse blessed me after I finished listening to that book and kind of went into that thought process. And God said, no, we're not doing that again. Go to my word. Go see what I say. Go see how I comfort. Go see how what I say is the truth about what the thoughts you're having. Capture those thoughts and make them obedient to Christ and replace them with what my word says. And my word says that you are to look carefully at how you walk now, live purposefully now, live worthily now, live accurately now, not as the unwise, and I'm going to add this part, you from back in the day, not as who you used to be, not as the witless one, but as you are right now, the wise one, the one that has believed unto salvation through faith in Jesus Christ. Be that person. That's who you are now. It says, making the very most of the time, buying up each opportunity, every opportunity that comes your way to profess my goodness, do it. Use that time now that you have, baby, you don't have to worry about time past because I'm redeeming all time. I'm redeeming the time that you lost, that you wasted. But you know, God don't waste. He don't let it go to waste. You might have been wasting the time, but he's not going to let it go to waste. And he says, therefore, do not be vague or thoughtless and foolish, but understanding and firmly grasping what the will of the Lord is. And then God brought back to me a scripture that in this case, when we get to this place and we are trying to be wise and we are trying to be thoughtful and purposefully living in the will of God, it is now that we have to seek wisdom. We have to go to God for the wisdom that he needs to give us. And in his word, he says in James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of our God, the one who gives liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. Live now wisely. Ask God for the wisdom to do now with the time that he's given you what his will is for your life. And in my case, nothing was wasted. Nothing was wasted. The pain, the years of doing what I thought to be done, not seeking him as I should have, but running after my own thoughts, running and doing the things that I thought would redeem me, doing the things that I thought would make me good enough, the things that I thought would bring me love, joy, peace, and all the things that only he could give me. Don't worry about those things. But now I will give you the wisdom to make those things useful for me. I will redeem that for you. And not only will I redeem it, but I will restore. I will restore. And as I was thinking through this and God was just pouring into me, he poured into me about going to Job. Love me some Job, y'all. Love me some Job. And I went to, he took me to Job 42:10. And in the amplified classic version, it says, and the Lord turned the captivity. Let me start again. And the Lord turned the captivity of Job and restored his fortunes when he prayed for his friends. Also, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. In the New King James Version, it says, and the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. I believe that as we do the will of God, after we have been redeemed, I believe that he restores everything. He restores everything. What was missing, what was stolen, what the devil meant for evil, those things that caused me pain, those things that had me bound, had me held in captivity. If you go back, he says that, and the Lord turned the captivity of Job. He turns our captivity around. I was held in bondage. I was held captive by the shame of my decision, of my past, of those things that I was regretful of. I was so self-condemning of those things that I could not see the goodness of God. I could not see or hear him calling me to the restoration of those things. Oh, but once he was able to really press in on me, and I was able to cry out to him, and he heard me, and he brought me back. He redeemed me. Then he turned my captivity. He turned it, and I am living in the peace and the joy and the liberation of Christ. And that's what he does. That's what he restores. When we are thinking of restoration, it is the spiritual place that needs to be restored before anything else. And it isn't until we begin to do the work of the Lord towards his will that he restores all the other tangible things that we lose. When we profess him, he begins immediately to restore us spiritually, right? He renews us as we begin to meditate on his word and learn his word and learn his truth. He restores those things in our spirit, such as peace, joy, the fruits of the spirit. Those things began to take root and become restored in our lives. And then, like Job, y'all, we begin to see the outward manifestations of those things as well. He restores the losses. It says that he took Job's losses, and not only did he restore them, he doubled them. He gave him twofold. Let me read the rest of what Job says. I hope I don't have to search for it too much. Hope it's still right here. Yes. And it says, this is Job 42:10. And the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. When he began to do the work, the will of God, things were restored. Indeed, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then look what happens. Look what happens. Then all his brothers, all his sisters, all of those who had been acquaintances before came to him and ate food with him in his house. And not only did they do that, they consoled him and comforted him for all the adversity that the Lord had brought upon him. Each one gave him a piece of silver and each a ring of gold. Restoration, giving you back all that you've lost in the tangible, giving it back to you. And then 12 says, now the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. Oh, that's so good. For he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of the first Jemima, the name of the second Keziah, and the name of the third Karen Apok. Y'all know how them words be doing. I mean, them names be doing. In all the land were found no women so beautiful as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. But look at this. And this Job lived 140 years and saw his children and grandchildren for 4 generations. What he did for Job, he can do for us too. Blessing us, having other people come and pour into us. That's restoration. It's not just about what the tangible things. They brought comfort, they brought peace, they brought prayers. And then along with that, they brought the tangible. God will restore it all. God is a redeemer of your time because time matters not to him. It doesn't matter what happened. It matters what you do now. Now is the time that you seek wisdom on how to live for him now and watch what he does in your life. Oh my God, I didn't even know. I didn't know what I was going to say. I still don't know what I'm going to name this episode. Probably redeeming the time or something of that nature. But look what he did for Job. It says, so Job died old and full of days. Old and full of days, because time did not matter to God. Time does not matter to God. So if you're feeling like you've wasted time, if you're feeling like um you've got more time behind you than you have in front of you, and you feel like the work you want to do for God is has you wasted all this time, that's a self-condemning thought. That is an attack of the enemy on your thoughts. Take that captive and replace it by what God says. Go read about Job. Job went through it. Job went through it. Job was a blessed man in the beginning and in the end. But he had some suffering he went through in the middle. But that's okay. Because God will redeem and he will restore. Y'all, I told y'all this podcast is about forgiveness, restoration, freedom, healing, and wholeness. That's what God is about. That is what God is about. There may be some things in your past that you are regretful of, but take that to the Lord, give it to him, and watch what he does. Watch what he does. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And I always end my episodes with the quote that God gave me that liberated me. And I want you all to remember this as I close. Don't be so uncomfortable with the darkness of your past that you are too fearful to walk into the light of your future. Y'all, go to Job. Look at Job. Job had a life that Satan thought he would be able to cause him to curse God, but he stood fast. He stood fast in knowing and trusting God. Know and trust God with your life as well, and watch what he will do. Y'all, I gotta go. I'll see y'all next week. Same time, same place. Love y'all. Bye.